All right, good morning. Today we are going to be going over the backup offer addendum. This gets used sometimes, not often. It depends on the current market situation and what is going on with our buyers and sellers. But they just had an update to it in June. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what they changed, but we'll go over the current document so that we know how to fill it out. Okay. Introduction. What is the benefit of a backup offer? Okay, so if you have the seller, having another offer in place in case your first one falls out will eliminate the need to go back on the market. So you won't have to show the MLS back on the market, wait again to get the new buyer, who however long that might take. It might have some different market conditions at that point, and you might not get as great of an offer. So having a backup offer in place, as soon as your first one cancels, you automatically go right back into contract. It's seamless. You're just in it. The timeline dates start over, and it's much smoother for your seller. For the buyer side, the benefit of the backup offer is if they really love the home, they are going to automatically be in line next for the home if it falls out. They don't have to go back into renegotiate and whatnot. The terms that they already agreed to originally are in place, and they just get to smoothly go right in to escrow. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay, first we need to start with our purchase agreement, the RPA. If you are representing the buyer and you know that the home that they love is already in contract, you're going to write the offer subject to the backup counter offer. And they give you a little box to check if you already know this. So it's on page 4 of the RPA, which is right under that grid we have. Remember, the first 3 pages of the RPA are the grid. The next page is page 4, and you have this whole bunch of things you can check to attach to your purchase agreement. And one of those in section 4B is the backup offer addendum. So again, if you already know that the home is in contract, but your buyer wants to be in backup position, you're going to check this box in section 4B, and then the backup offer addendum, you will complete and fill that out and give it to the listing agent at the time you present the offer. Now, if you are the listing agent and you receive this offer and your seller has either accepted another one or is going to accept another one, you know it's fully going through, but you want to put this one into backup position, you would then check the backup offer addendum box in section 34A, and that's on page 16, right above where the seller signs the agreement, right next to where the seller counteroffer section is as well. You do not have to do a counteroffer as well. If you like the terms of the RPA, you can just check the backup offer addendum part, and it would be an accepted contract. You would have to fill out the backup addendum because you didn't receive it from the buyer in the first place, okay? Which we'll get to that next. But you don't have to counter it. If you do want to counter the offer, you can actually check both counteroffer and backup addendum. So if they accept the counteroffer, they're accepting the backup addendum as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Moving on to the backup offer addendum, BUO. Okay, you can find it in your zip forms, whatever you use, or Glide or SkySlope for us. You just type in BUO and it comes in. The first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is that very top line. This is an addendum to the purchase agreement. That's standard. So if you are the buyer agent and you know this is a backup offer from the get-go, you're not going to check anything. It's standard that it's part of the purchase agreement. If you're the listing agent and you are responding with only a backup offer and you're accepting the purchase agreement, you're going to leave it standard right there. If you are countering as well as giving a backup offer, you're going to check that box, counter offer, and then whatever number you're in. Okay. And then again, the date, just like always, the agreement dated, it's whatever this is. It's either going to be the purchase agreement date or the counteroffer date. That's what that's asking, not the date you're completing it right now. Because remember, they all have to go together in a line. So we need to know that this backup addendum is coinciding with either the counteroffer or the purchase agreement with this date. Okay, and then obviously the address and the buyer and seller name. Number one, the agreement is in backup position number, and this is where you fill it out. Of course, if you're the buyer and you already know that you're trying to get in backup position, you're going to be in communication with that listing agent to figure out what number you're going to be in. I honestly do not see a whole bunch of backup offers in a row, but it does happen. So typically this is going to be number one. You're going to put a number one there. If you already know that they already have a backup offer and you want to be backup offer number two, you can go ahead and put number two there. The likelihood of you getting that offer is probably pretty low, but they give you the option to write in there. Okay, and it is contingent upon written cancellation of any prior contracts and related escrows, and they call that prior transaction, between the seller and other buyers. And then they have to show you the mutual release of the obligation to buy, sell, or exchange that property. Seller and other buyers may mutually agree to modify or amend the terms of the prior transaction. Well, what does that mean? Why did they put that in there? So this is basically saying we don't get to dictate how they conduct their business in that escrow that they're already in. They might have a price reduction. They might give credits, just like a normal escrow. We don't get to say, well, I'm in backup position, so you can't modify your current agreement. They're saying they still have the right to conduct their business as usual, and you will be the next one in line given it fully cancels. Okay, I guess they had some problems with people thinking that they had to stick to the original terms of their original offers. All right, how to cancel. Okay, so let's say your buyer has gotten into backup position number one, and they went ahead and kept looking for homes, as they should, because there's no guarantee they're going to get it. And they find another house they love and they want to go ahead with that other home. You're going to cancel your backup offer. Okay. So, and it says the buyer may cancel the agreement in writing anytime before the seller provides the buyer copies of the written cancellations. Okay, so that anytime, and in writing, it doesn't state that you have to do the cancellation of contract form. However, best practice and for the safety of your buyer not getting into two contracts at a time would be to use the cancellation of contract form, a CC, and you would check that it is, instead of the purchase agreement, you're going to put the backup counter offer and you're going to write in there section 2A as the reason. Okay, we can go over that if you ever have that situation come up. And now B, for buyer or for seller. If seller is unable to provide such written signed cancellations and releases to buyer by a certain date that you get to write in, then either party may cancel the agreement in writing. Okay, so this is where we can kind of strategize. If you are a buyer, and the way I was taught back when I first started was that we never put in a date here. Because what could happen on the seller side is if you're a buyer counter position number one, and the seller gets another offer that is better than yours, they are just going to wait until this date comes and goes, and then they are going to cancel on you, get into the other backup, and then cancel the current escrow that they have. Okay, does that make sense? So as the seller, if that's a strategy that you have, maybe you're going to want to put a date in there. Maybe not. Honestly, when I see this form, it's usually blank. And I don't know if that's because people don't know what to do or because...
In most cases, would you give yourself enough time to maybe do inspections or something like that? Or what would be the time period that would be ideal?
Probably like the contingency removal dates, because you would know for sure by then.
Okay.
But for the buyer side, you have section 2A that says you can cancel any time. So you really don't need a date there on the buyer side. Yeah. Okay, moving on. backup counter offer, section 3, is 3 and 4, talk about the deposit and the time periods. So the standard is that the buyer, your buyer, if you're representing the buyer, doesn't have to put in their EMD or the time periods in that transaction do not start until the current escrow that the seller is in has canceled. So to be in backup position, your buyer isn't out any money. They don't have to give the EMD. They're just waiting for it to see if it cancels. Okay, section 5 is just kind of a disclaimer that's saying, you know, parties agree that no real estate broker or agent is involved in the transaction, has advised if it has legally canceled, whatnot. It's just lawyer speak to cover the broker there. And then 6 is the expiration. So if the backup offer is attached to the purchase agreement when you give it to the listing agent, or if there's a counter coming back from the listing side with a backup offer attached, it cancels or it expires at the same time as the offer does. They just put I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory, but they needed to make that clear. And then, of course, there's where the seller and the buyer sign. And then how do we find out that the seller has fallen out of escrow and that we're in #1 position and now we're in escrow? Well, the very bottom section of the backup offer addendum is the notice of cancellation and release of prior transaction. And it just states that the seller is signing this part of the backup offer, giving it to the buyer with proof of cancellation of the prior escrow, which would be that signed and completed cancellation document. All right, and then as soon as that happens, the agreement is now in full force and in effect. Okay. And that is it for that form. Questions?
I think it's gonna come into play a little bit more. I think there's a lot of low-end properties that are coming on the market, and I think investors are gonna make more offers and possibly multiple offers on.
Yeah.
And I know it's saying lower price properties, but nowadays it's like 300 and down, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's considered lower.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good to know how to fill this out and kind of strategize about what to put and when. Any questions or comments about that or anything else that might have come up recently for you?
On your slides.
Thanks. Do we have anything in the chat? Okay. Yeah, oh, yeah, we had a lot of people on today. Okay,
I didn't see that.
that's all right.
You got it recorded.
I did.
Okay.